All right, let's go to interwar Poland. The scope of interwar Polish printed matter for this presentation will be limited to the covers and selected pages of modern constructivist journals, such as Zwrotnica in English, Switching Point, Dźwignia, Lever, BLOK, and bulletins of the AR group, Real Avant-garde or Revolutionary Artists, as the group's members define themselves, as well as an example from the Książka, in English book, publisher. For your convenience, I will be hopping between cities such as Krakow, Warsaw, Vilnius, and Łódź, keeping in mind that Poland was absent from the map of Europe for 123 years, prior to gaining independence in 1918 as a result of partition between Russia, Prussia, and Austria. And traveling between different cities from various parts of Poland still felt like traveling between different countries during this exact period of new state building. As a result, there were as many ideas, splits, and inspiration among the groupings as there were artists from various geographical origins working in the design of modern magazines in Poland. Though conflicts and splits between groups occurred, the similarities between the covers and printed matter that reprinted abstract constructivists considered leftist layouts, photographs of works of art, written work, poems, or manifestos, when compared within each other, still show similarities not only between themselves but also between other interwar international French, Dutch, Soviet Russian journals. Here in the slide, in the right corner, we can see cover and leaflet for the group exhibition of the abstract artists group Circle and Square at the Gallery 23 in Paris, which took place in 1930. The group was founded in spring 1929 by painter Torres Garcia and cartoonist, poet, and art critic Michel Souffort. The group published a journal with the same name in 3 issues. On the left is a sketch for the manifesto of the Łódź AR group's first newsletter, published in 1930, which formally resembles the circle and square cover design. I will return later in the presentation to Władysław Strzemin, the AR group founder, and his publishing objective, while emphasizing on the constructivist factor in magazines, cover designs, its formalistic feature, and how the network for the interchange of ideas amongst French capital was made feasible. Still pertaining to the historical background, it is worth adding that as a result of the termination of the partition censorship between the regaining of Polish independence in 1918 and the onset of World War II, the press underwent considerable development. Numerous previously published titles continued to be printed, but new magazines and transient newspapers were also launched. Among them, illustrated propaganda periodicals constitute a separate subject genre. With the enormous development of photomontage as a medium, these periodicals attained a large circulation and gained popularity. Due to the accessible formal, timely topics and frequently scathing criticism of the employment situation, working conditions, unemployment, and the effects of progressive industrialization. Interwar Poland was an ethnically and religiously diverse nation with around 10% of the population being Jewish. This was reflected in the publishing business, where publications debuted in a variety of languages, including Polish, German, Russian, Hebrew, and Yiddish. In this paper, however, I would like to examine this Polish linguistic category based on the premise that the propaganda field of the Polish press in terms of working class representation remains relatively untapped. The majority of communist publishing in interwar Poland took place underground, as the Communist Party of Poland was not legalized and was therefore disapproved by the government. However, the party published not only a daily newspaper and magazines, but also special issues illustrating cultural social praise items that were distributed through avant-garde circuits. Since 1923, the Szczuka-Z duo has been inextricably linked to the communist movement in Warsaw, defining the latter's modern graphic design. Both designed communist special issues. Szczuka redesigned the graphic layout of the party periodical Nowa Kultura, New Culture, between 1923 and 1924 for the intelligentsia, and following the closure of the periodical, took on the editorship of Dźwignia, between 1927 and 1928, which along with Miesięcznik Literacki, literary monthly, entered the legend of radical communism periodicals designed by Avant-garde. Quote, "The task of wignia is to rally those working in the field of culture, literary figures, artists, etc., who form the backbone of the modern proletariat and its endeavors." End of quote, the editors noted in the program announcement. A graphic artist, creator of photomontages and political film and advertising posters, Mieczysław provides a factual description of Dźwignia's designs in his memoir about Szczuka. Quote, "The graphic layouts of all editions are marked by their simplicity and appropriateness. The periodical did not use many illustrations. The text was in bravier typeface, arranged in a single column of 7 squares. In order to enliven the gray surface of the text, embellishments introduced to the form of dashes composed of ready so-called cubistic typesetters material, for example, lines, little squares, dots, etc." End of quote. Book and cover design for legally running communist cooperative Książka were also created by Szczuka and Żarnowerówna. Graphic designers working at Książka printing press frequently used constructivist ornamentation, such as squares, thick lines, and bold type, influenced by the work of these two artists. That's because communist publications, according to the artist's prescriptions, must have a striking appearance, strong lines, rigid constructivist divisions, and deployment of huge stone type. The publishing of business was responsible for printing the Szczuka designed Ziemia na lewo, Earth to the left volume of communist and proletariat poetry in 1924, when social sentiments were at their most radical. However, the first effort at a print with a functional layout of the text reflecting the emergence of a new anti-futurist notion of art was the Katalog Wystawy Nowej Sztuki, Catalog of a New Art Exhibition, published in Vilnius in May 1923. Witold Kairuksztys and Władysław Strzemin organized the exhibition, which brought together painters of the constructivist school. It was the group's first unofficial appearance. The catalogue became a vehicle for expressing opinions, for clarifying young artists' positions on the state of art at the moment, and for opposing the ripping of form, an endeavor to discover the structural aspects of a work of art. The principles of composition, the construction of works and discussions of poetics increasingly drew Strzeminski's into problems only seemingly distant from his painting of the art of words. Already in the early 1920s, he attempted to create synthesis of expressions in a manner subordinated to visual intellectual constructions. The text included in the catalogue of the New Art exhibition is full of poetic abbreviations quoted many times later. For example, the creativity of unity of forms, the location of the painting action within the painting, the style of the present, and slogans. A work of art is not a sign of anything, it exists by itself, organic plastic essence, spontaneous existence of form. The eye at the end of the brush are constantly referred to, not only because of the content they contain, but above all the poetics of their message. The first issue of the magazine BLOK became a breakthrough in the history of Polish printing, transmission of a variety of material in the form of condensed entries leading the reader's eye from one group of words to the next, arranged vertically or horizontally, differentiated by a separate typeface, harmony of small divisions, logic of construction with a large, almost poster-sized print, made BLOK immediately stand in the forefront of avant-garde publications of that period. Each of the following issues proposed new types of graphic layout. The size and shape of the print was each time subordinated to the form of the collected material and the construction of the page. The first 3 issues were edited by Henryk Staz, Teresa Żarnowerówna, Mieczysław Szczuka, and Edmund Miller, with Staz being the responsible editor, with the subsequent issues were edited only by Szczuka and Żarnowerówna. The form of BLOK was the result of the work of all the members of the group. They discussed the material together and proposed layouts. The final editing was carried out by Szczuka in the printing house Drukarstwo o układzie graficznym, printing with graphic layout. According to the BLOK assumptions is first of all economical use of space, the possibility of placing a variety of text material on one page, while maintaining the condition of transparency and clarity of reading through, the use of different typefaces for individual articles, the direction in which the articles are arranged on the page, a wealth of graphic means and contrasts. The BLOK group, established in March 1924, gathered many outstanding artists connected by the motto of absolute construction, but representing separate, sometimes even contradictory artistic formation from cubism to suprematism and constructivism. Apart from Witold Kairuksztys, Władysław Strzemin and his wife Katarzyna Kobro, who came from the USSR, the group included the aforementioned Mieczysław Szczuka and Teresa Żornowerówna, basking in the success of their recent exhibition in December 1923 at Berlin's Sturm Gallery, Henryk Berlewi, who exhibited with the November Gruppe in 1922 and 1923, and Henryk Staz, who participated in the Warsaw's formist activities. It was this circle of artists, complemented by the work of Kazimierz Podsadecki, who designed the graphic layout for the second series of the Kraków Zwrotnica, the foundation of modern Polish printing, were laid. Polish revolutionary graphic arts and typography were undoubtedly affected by Soviet avant-garde publications. This was especially true of Wignia and the magazines Lev and Nowy Lev. However, this was not limited to graphic design. It sought to represent the ideas requiring literature to adhere to particular factual descriptions and accurate accounts of reality. These postulates aligned with Szczuka's work, particularly his photomontage, designs, and posters, in which he consistently aimed for agitational art and proletariat utopia. As Swiss artist and designer Max Biel put it after the war, there was a gradual shift away from new typography towards functional typography around the 1930s. As evidenced by the gradual disappearance of such distinctive elements in compositions as thick lines, large dots, disproportionately large folios, and similar features, end of quote. Poland was also undergoing a similar process. The radical left's authors' books retained their practical, streamlined font on their covers and text, but were significantly more subtle and tidier. This trend had already been popularized on a far larger scale by the circle of artists associated with the Praesens and AR groups. The culmination of the stage of work of the issues of new typography was the international innovative exhibition Modern Art Printing, organized by the AR group. The exhibition of modern printing opened on 1st of May 1932 at the Institute of Propaganda in Łódź, and it was the result of Strzeminski's campaign to exchange information and publications. In total, works by 20 authors from 5 countries were presented. While working on the exhibition, Strzeminski was preparing theoretical material on the new typography. He published an article in which he used the term functional print for the first time. He proclaimed that the concept of graphic layout should always be an illustration of its mental content. Quote, "In functional printing, each group of text should interact with the content it contains, expresses it. The extraction of an emotional character can be achieved by using various types and sizes of fonts, sensitivity to signs of texture. The surface of print is not just a printed surface, but a certain density of printing color. By contrasting the intensity of printing color in individual groups of text, we achieve a greater tension of form," end of quote. Władysław Strzemin devoted special attention to the similarities between the formal resolutions occurring in painting and maximum content in minimal words, poetry works. Strzemin authored a number of theoretical papers proclaiming that the concept of the layout should always be the contents of mental imagery. The decision of simplify the form of writing was a direct consequence of the reflections on the aesthetic expression of the presented graphic arrangements. In December 1932, Strzemiński presented a project of a new shape of letters, calling on graphic designers and printers to cooperate on the realization of a modern alphabet. He accompanied the project with a short comment, quote, "The modern economic form of letters should consist of standardized geometrical elements, a straight line and an arc. The source of the form is contrast, therefore we reject symmetrically repeating elements. We contrast the elements used in the construction of a letter as shape, size, and direction." End of quote. Modern printing played a leading role in propagating new aesthetics. Leaflets, posters, magazines, and book publications became comprehensive manifestos of the avant-garde. Strzemiński's graphic structural project was thus extremely important for the creation of future solutions. The public vocational training school number 10, whose management was entrusted to Strzemiński in 1931, was a meeting place as well as a scientific laboratory preparing exhibitions and educational programs in the field of printing. The school, intended for young polygraphers and wall painters under his supervision, became a comprehensive place of learning about new typography accessible to artists in Łódź. The first prints were produced in the school's experimental print shop as late as May 1932. In the minds of the young students of the art of printing, next to the already recognized individualities of Picasso, Mondrian, Strzemiński, and Kobro, proposals of systems of dynamic balance contained in suprematist compositions by Malevich and concrete forms defined by the artist's hand and closed inorganic drawings by Arp were established. The school produced the notebook Druk Funkcjonalny, 1934, edited by Strzemiński, which was also volume 6 of the AR library. It contained the most interesting graphic layouts by students as well as a number of leaflets advertising the new typography. Quote, "In functional printing, the rhythm of the graphic composition follows from the rhythm to the content. A text ordered on the principle of the greatest legibility is organized to the rhythm of the reader's eye movement. The beauty of functional printing lies in the changeable rhythm of the division of space." End of quote. The next publication of the school Principles of Print Composition appeared in 1937, edited by Stefan Wegner. The notebook was illustrated with students' works, which revealed subsequent stages of the process of preparing a print from the first division of the plane from multi-zone layouts marked with a text to finished layouts. In this context, Strzemiński's discussion with Polish poet Tadeusz Piper and Julian Przyboś about poetry, as well as the information of the AR group in union with the poets, took on concrete meaning. In the communication of the AR group in number 1, a joint work by Strzemiński and Przyboś, the artists defined poetry as a unity of vision condensed into a maximum of imaginary allusions and a minimum of words. They also wrote about the constant cooperation of visual arts with poetry and the necessity of posing the question of new art in its entirety instead of the hitherto novelty in one area of the art, at the same time compromise and ignorance in the other. To conclude, in a developing Polish publishing market, the visual styles of progressive printing works and those who wish to move as progressive gained momentum in the interwar period in a social and cultural publication scene, which was more and more polarized by political divisions. The new typography was the inspiration for exploring completely new forms of commercial design as well as providing the embodiment of the ideal of modern visual communication. Thank you.